just like honey, sweet to taste on burning lips. Wanna lie beneath the water, feeling icy fingertips. Soothing nectar to my body, wash the image from my eyes. Dirty streets of hungry people, drink the water, dry your eyes. First one look at the reflections, listen to the music made. Drinking water's ease the mind, thoughts of you begin to fade.
Get yourself together before it's too late.
He's back, everybody. It's Divided We Stand. Night of something or other from Bridgeton, New Jersey via Arlington, Virginia. It's Divided We Stand. If you're not familiar with us, we don't the Divided We Stand Facebook group and YouTube channel. If you're a liberal or you simply don't like Republicans, this is the place to be. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so, because we can use all the subscriptions we can get. Good to see you, T-Bone. Good to see you. And anybody who hasn't seen T-Bone Side of Life's channel, I suggest you check it out. It's very, very creative. There's a lot to say. So,
Are you still sucking on that Werther?
yeah, I am.
Take it out of your damn mouth, will you? It's a professional
I guess that
show,
means I have to
supposedly.
go to my compadre. This light is bright. Jesus. All right. Let's go to Dave already. He can't behave himself when he's alone in the green room. What the hell you call it? All right, Dave. I'll get you there. I'll get to the next scene if I can find it.
Oh, for God's sakes. It's like working with Bobo the Wonder Chimp.
Well, tonight we're going to do things slowly. Okay,
Are you still sucking on that Werther?
here we go.
You are.
I don't have a drink with me tonight. Dave, good evening.
Well, good evening,
I guess
Brian.
we're waiting for you the whole
Why
time.
don't you turn the music up? I can almost hear you.
All right.
That is loud, though, Brian.
It certainly is.
Now, that's
Dave,
nice.
how's the audio? Working perfectly?
Brian, when I work with other people around the world, my audio works perfectly. Last week, people who tuned in, we've done an investigation, and ladies and gentlemen, I know what happened with Brian. T-Bone, actually, I'm back in D.C. for a couple days. And what happened, T-Bone, because you're familiar,
Dave, you need a
being-
spanking, Kim said.
Yeah, well, I'm not into that, but if I were, now here's the thing, Kim and T-Bone, and I hate to admit this, we got an independent investigation, and Brian, he has a big ego. I mean, I'd love to tell you differently. And last week, he sabotaged me
Are we
in
getting
Alabama.
I didn't realize, Epi, are you from, I'm sorry, Dave, from Great Britain? From across the pond? Or
No, that's the
hold it.
Clark's Pond.
the real pond?
Hey, Epi. God, we're getting so relaxed on this show.
I'm
We
telling
got to, because you don't have any idea what you're doing. Anyway, yeah. Hey, Veg. Welcome. Anyway, I'll work with Brian because I care about you folks. So, Brian. Hey, Laura. Hey, everybody.
We got everybody in the house.
That's good.
today, Dave.
Very nice. All four.
No,
No,
we've been doing really, really well. And we already
I
have
know.
Glasgow, Scotland. Wow, Scotland.
Oh, I've actually been in your city.
That's great.
I like T-Bone's question though. I'm available for a world tour. All you have to do is send me some money to get there, and I'll broadcast from anywhere. So if that offer's open, Brian, it's been a week,
It certainly has, hasn't it?
and has the world gotten better? Has America gotten better? What do you think?
All right, here's where I'm going to take
Kim,
this.
we'll come back to that. Yes, I want to deal with that. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to try to play the optimistic guy tonight, a little bit at least.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, that's going to be kind of tough here. Yeah. All right. Here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, we've got a lot of things going on internally in the country. We have the problem with Ukraine. So I was speaking with an individual who lives in California. He's an American, but he was originally Polish. He lived in Poland during the Soviet Union. And we had a rather long discussion, 2 hours, about the current situation. We talked about Joe Biden. And, one of my liberal friends on Facebook, Jim McNally, Jim works for one of the newspapers. Actually, he's a teacher now, but he used to, like Dave, he worked for a newspaper. And he felt like Biden's been a failure. But after my discussion with this individual from Poland, I think there's some cause for hope. Not just for Biden, of course, but for the situation in Ukraine, because it's beginning to look, Dave, like Ukraine could win this thing. I mean, not just say they won because the Russians retreated from Kiev and all, but Ukraine's getting a lot of the offensive, well, I guess you could call them offensive weapons, the howitzers and things like that. And we're not military men, but they've held the Russians at bay. And with all this new machinery and training, and if you look at the performance of the Russian troops, now this is where I'm going to get historical with this, Dave, and I'm going to bring you back in for this because I've talked about Genghis Khan and the system that's kind of been in place in Russia for, I don't know, ever since 1300, so 800 years or so. a system that's really not left, because the Mongols raped and pillaged Russia. It really affected the females more than anybody in Russia in those days. But this system went from that to serfdom, which ended, I believe, in 1860. But did it really end, Dave? Did serfdom really end? If serfdom meant that you lived like a pauper and you were intimidated by the authorities, one could argue that serfdom really never left Russia. Now, you've talked about the skeletons of the French and the British and the Americans in terms of slavery. Russia never had to go that route because they already had it. They already had the serfs there, right?
Correct.
So, in my discussion with this guy, Dave, today, we both agreed that, in a certain sense, for the majority of Russians, serfdom really hasn't left that country. And if you see where I'm going to go with this, if the Ukrainian army can win, if there can be enough dissent in Russia after seeing them lose, we might be able to see a change, something that kind of started 30 years ago, but might really accelerate if somebody takes Putin out, if there's some great change. And I know there's going to be a special on Navalny tomorrow night on CNN at 9 Eastern time, but I think there is at least an opportunity for something like that to happen, if you see where I'm going with this. And then if that happens, we're talking about 800 years of Russia being like this, like a box, and then now it opens up. Biden solves that problem, something that nobody has solved. And not only that, think about it. If Biden hadn't been president, look at what would have happened with Ukraine. Most likely would have happened, Zelensky wouldn't have had support of Trump. Trump would have painted Zelensky as a mob, or this or that. And just basically, I believe that Ukraine would have been done in 3 weeks if Trump had been president. So I think we have to look at this situation as something historic, in a certain sense, that if things go a certain way, this could change the world, at least make the world something different than it has been for the last 200 or 300 years. Now, a lot has to happen right, to fall into place. But so far, so when we look at Biden, and like I say, James McNally today was mentioning how he's done nothing. He's not enigmatic. He just, we could say that about Biden, but he's meticulously handled this situation very well. The Ukrainians are in it. They might win. And Putin has made those mistakes. Putin has, and even the armies, if you think about it, this goes back to what this gentleman told me, was that, the Russian women, much like the African American women, are kind of held together, the family. And the men were actually babied in Russia. So much so, the women would do their bed, clean their clothes, and do this and that. Men are generally lazy there, as he said, and it shows when you look at these trenches in Ukraine with the Russian soldiers. They leave us; they're like pigs. And then not only are they acting like pigs, but they're doing what a sloppy army would do. Their fellow countrymen are dead. They leave the bodies in the tank. They say goodbye. They're half dead, and they still say goodbye. So, it's all looking down on this for Biden, or is there something to be said about what he's done? Dave, I'm going to let you put your 2 cents in there, because I know I've talked a long time about this. So let's see what you think.
Well, as I've always said to you personally and to anyone listening to this show, I always defer to your expertise in Russia. So I'm going to, yes, it is an Alabama hat. I'll tell you why later. But okay, I don't want to burst your bubble, but today I did go to the Washington Nationals game. And people are going to say, well, big whoop, who cares? And that would normally be true in terms of the show. But the person I was with has been in and out of reporting and politics in Washington, D.C. 40 years, maybe 30. And the word is that Mr. Biden is not doing real well in the health field, and it's personal health field.
Okay.
So, what does that mean? Is it true? I don't know. My concern, as a novice, or I would say novice, I guess, but as somebody, I'm still worried. I might even be more worried as the situation gets worse for Russia, because in Putin's mind, he is Russia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
he does come about it from his personal idea of what history should be.
I'm not arguing that, but as it's been pointed out by people who've spent their career following him, they're not real sure what his state of mind is.
Hold on 1 second.
Right
Viz,
now.
Am I too loud?
No, Brian's fading in and out of my end. I don't know what I'm doing.
Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Am I too loud?
You're not. Well, no. We'll let the people.
Dave, you might hear me. Normally, I've had to have this different levels left and right in the last week. Please tell me if the audio is too loud, and I'll change it.
I'm not worried about loud. I'm worried about if you're breaking up. I don't know, because our feeds are different. Oh yeah, we'll get to
We'll get to that. We're definitely
maggot.
gonna get to that.
That's MTG's kind of a short version of maggot. But let's finish Biden. Let's get out.
But I do want to get the sound levels before because we can't
Yeah.
do anything right unless it's correct. So if somebody would tell me, whether this is too loud or it's the connection's bad, just tell us. Fading in and out rapidly.
Yeah, that's what I hear on my end from you. Not the music, but your mic.
And you are fading in and out. Okay. I'll try.
I told you not to get that mic from Kmart. Did you listen to me? No, they were going out of business. And you said, but it's only $3.14.
Fading in and out. All right. I don't like monkeying around with these things while the show's going on.
Can I make a suggestion, Brian? Why don't you just unplug it and plug it back in? Make sure it's just not a shortened cord.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of what. Why don't you just unplug it and do the show, Brian Unplugged?
Test. Change to Yeti. Okay, can you hear me, Dave?
I can hear you good.
All right, now I'm gonna just cut my mic
Now
off
you're not
for a
breaking
second.
up, but leave it.
Now I'm gonna just
Don't
cut
do
this
it.
off for a second. Tell me if it cuts off.
It's the best sound I've ever heard from you. It's called the sound of silence.
Okay, good. Should be like your mic is running through a Leslie. Wow. Well,
That's cool. Yeah. Who gave that comment? They get comment of the night.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, Veg, you're absolutely right.
I don't know what I honestly don't know what's going on.
It's even worse because it sounds like it's a Leslie simulator, not even a regular.
Nina says she heard both of us perfectly before.
Listen, folks, my suggestion, we've been having problems. If you have, I don't know, access to really strong hallucinogens, that might be a possibility. I don't know.
I don't know. I think as I'm changing
not
the scenes,
advocating
Dave,
drug
I think
use, but
Brian is fine. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it sounds like we're okay.
we'll go with
Dave.
what we got.
All right, so you getting
better
back
on-
to I should probably not be.
Okay, let me
that
do
positive
this.
about it.
Okay, let's go. I'm
A little bit closer to the mic, Dave.
concerned- I will. I'm more concerned about what Putin does as he's losing, because he's going to be the one at the end, unless you know something I don't know, who's going to tell the Russians what to do And do they do it? I don't know. Now, I would bet some money that Mr. Putin is somewhat surprised about two things. His own Russian troops and the strength of the Ukrainian resistance. Now,
Check.
you were kind of giving Mr. Biden some credit. And what Mr. Biden has done is not alienate NATO as Trump did. He also is not aligned with Putin. So I'm back to my standard line. Every day with Joe Biden in the White House is better than any day with Donald Trump. But the question becomes, and this week, Putin rattled his sabers again about, don't you allow Sweden, into NATO.
But Dave, I know where you're going with this. Think about it. And this we discussed earlier today with another individual. He could have said nothing instead of saber rattling and said, well, I might use my nuclear weapons. If you're going to say it, you come through and you actually do it. You don't say anything and needs to do it.
Well, we don't
Biden
know that he
himself
won't do it.
already warned me, I'll do this without NATO. I will respond to you in kind, which was good. But for Putin to keep saying that I'm going to use this, I think it's just an idle threat. I think he knows he can't. They'll lose Moscow.
You're right. I hope you're right.
And by the way they're going, now this might sound absolutely insane or ridiculous to you or anybody else, but if Ukraine starts doing really well, understand, now I know this is crazy, I don't think they would do it. Moscow is only 500 miles from Kiev.
I figured that's
They could push into Russian territory and send a message to them. I'm not saying go all the way to Moscow, but they could push into Russian territory.
Anything we put on the table tonight, could be real, could be unreal, because we're speculating. The question becomes, okay, I'm going to do it simply in my mind. What constitutes defeat for Vladimir Putin, and what constitutes a victory for the Ukraine?
I think this is a complicated question to answer. However, we know that individuals they operate under self-preservation. We know that.
Correct.
So all leaders in Russia, the main leadership, the governors of the oblasts, but mainly Putin, they're concerned with self-preservation. And at some point, if the public turns on him, that means the people under him may turn on him.
Correct.
So he's under a great threat because that could snap on him. And, while things seemed okay the first few weeks, everybody's going along with the propaganda. Now you have a ship that sunk. And then they were saying to the people,
it was just a fire.
This was just a fire. So you see, now you're starting to get some cognitive dissonance there. And the propaganda, as much as it's been so effective, at some point, it won't work. Now, I know what you're going to say. So, well, look at what's happening with us. You have Kevin McCarthy who's talking shit, but people won't care. So, maybe that 83% for Putin, again, is locked in. I don't know. But my opinion is that if you have over 20,000 deaths, and even worse, if you have, say, 20 or 30,000 half dead, and they're not getting the answers. And don't forget, these are people, these aren't kids coming from Moscow and St. Petersburg. They're coming from areas of Russia in Siberia and whatnot who are getting paid, who don't have that much money. And they're actually saying you can make some money to these kids, 18-year-old to 20, come into this special operation. So a kid takes it thinking it's going to be just a special operation. And now Putin's cornered himself. He's called this a special operation, but it's turned into a war that you're losing. And already he's saying things like, this isn't a war against Ukraine. This is a war against NATO, because he might be able to accept a loss to NATO, but he can't accept a loss to Ukraine. So there's a lot going on here that Putin's made colossal mistakes. And this is why I say Biden, oh my God, dysphagia. Biden, it's like an old man now.
Yes, you do.
An old man eating old man candy. Werther's.
I have no idea why you're doing that, but that's okay.
I'm as old as Joey Folger. Jesus. I just lost my state of mind.
Well,
You finished my
pick it up
state of
for you.
mind.
In my way of thinking, simplistically in the world, there's four, well, you could have millions, but I'm not going to go to Asia and Africa and all right now. But to me, the effects are Russia, what happens, right? Ukraine, what happens?
And by the way,
NATO,
if Russia starts losing and Putin is out of favor, now Lukashenko's has got something to worry about in Belarus, because he's the prostitute for Putin.
So you've got that. You've got what does NATO and then what do the NATO countries think? And I'm going to separate us, even though we're part of NATO, because when this war ends, and it will, unless there's a nuclear or some kind of cyber strike on the U.S. that puts us back in the Stone Age, we'll still be here. And what concerns me so much is even in this, our nation is so damn divided about this. Now, we can blame Fox and we can blame OAN, and we can blame Trump, and we can blame anybody we want. But at the end, Americans have to make their decision. And normally, sort of used to be Russia bad. Certainly, we've seen the people wearing the T-shirts rather be Russian than Democrat. We've got the idea.
Right. I mean, do you still? Let's stop right there for a second, Dave.
Right.
In your honest opinion, the average full-fledged Trumper, do they hate us more than they hate Russians?
Yes.
All right.
Now, why I say that is the same reason why I fear Trumpers more than I fear Russia. All right. Now, anyone can say, but Dave, the Trumpers don't have nuclear weapons. I'm kind of with you, Brian. Anything's possible, but Putin's really going to have to lose it to launch any kind of nuclear offensive attack or defensive attack. So, but the Trumpers are here, and we see how they work. We see what they do. We know, and I keep coming back to this figure, 74 million Americans felt Donald Trump's 4 years deserved another 4 years. Now, it doesn't matter whether they feared Biden more, whether they were a Mitch McConnell who said, well, I think Trump's bad, but I'll support him. And the fact that I'm going to support a Republican candidate isn't front page news. Or they hate us, being liberals or Democrats or educated or Northerners or whatever. So, yes, it is certainly, as who said it? Kim, I guess it was talking about everybody on, the anxiety level of 11 if it goes to 10.
Dave, could you come a little bit closer to the mic?
Yeah, there's so many reasons why that anxiety could be. And what I find so disconcerting is this week, I don't know, I'm not as worried partly for what you said about what's going on in the Ukraine, but I may be much more worried about what's going on, and I'll speak at some length later on it, what's going on in the, whatever the Republican Party is now, and their standard bearer, if it's not Donald Trump, I think is somebody to be more feared at this point. Fox has anointed them as the heir apparent, and that's the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis. And I think he's smarter than Trump. Well, I know he's smarter than Trump. Trump has the seeds of his own destruction sewn into his DNA, but I don't know that DeSantis has that. And one of the things I want to talk about tonight that I found so interesting and still following, and there's all kinds of things going on, is the battle between Disney and Ron DeSantis and how America lines up with that. So I'm going to leave you, for your conclusions or questions on the Ukraine, and then I want to pick up with that. So
Well, I just want to say this, or maybe I'm asking the question. It's just that I think there are possibilities for Biden. I think he's handled this very, very well, despite what the Republicans have said. And let's face it, he's a wartime president right now. If they didn't have the United States, this war would have been long over with. So he's done a great job, and it's a shame that the assholes on the other side have, they just, as you say, they hate us more than they hate the Russians. Have made it extremely difficult for him. He could have been a great president if he could have gotten Bill back better, whatever. So in any case, there still is an opportunity for him if something really good should come out of Russia, out of this. I still think there is a possibility.
Except if America is not destroyed, do the majority of Americans really care what happened in the Ukraine? That's my question. Once it's over, or is that, do we just then focus on gas prices? Do we focus on the fact that when you go to the grocery store, yeah, they all need their balls tanned, which is absurd of itself. Let me go not off topic, but on Tucker Carlson. Who in their right mind says, take your balls and get them tanned by red light because we don't have enough testosterone? Tucker Carlson, who right now has the largest following of Fox News. They don't see that that's a little absurd. No. Why? Same reason they took cow medicine. They're stupid. And Tucker knows that. And Tucker's making a fortune. And sometimes it just plays into things. For example, I'm not ever going to use the word "the shocked" again after Donald Trump won, but it surprised me. A CNN Plus lasted, 3 weeks? And they pulled the plug. Now, if you look into it, there were a lot of things. It was planned when one company opened it and another company bought it, and they're probably gunshot. But now think about this in a win-loss situation. Mr. Wallace, Chris, leaves Fox News for this big job that is gone in 3 weeks. They said that they may be laying off 200 people, the majority in news at CNN. Does Fox tout that? I would if I were them. So I'm not dismissing the concerns of the Ukraine and Russia. What I'm saying is, I'd feel more comfortable if President Biden continues to do what he's doing, get as much weaponry into that country as he can authorize. Let them, let the Ukrainians fight it out. Your friend who had his 3 friends go from Canada, one of whom tragically lost his life, and you fight that out. But
By the way,
right
Dave, I
now-
do want to add, I don't want to get too personal here. Kevin's not
Right.
probably with us, but Kevin's going through some health issues again, and
Okay. Well,
we were worried about Kevin. We're really
well,
worried. but-
unfortunately, we're at that age.
right. And it's,
If we were doing this show,
he would like to
50
be
years
here, I know
ago,
that.
50 years ago, we wouldn't have those issues. We'd have others, but not the health issues that.
He did go to the funeral of the individual who died. I don't want to give the guy's name out, but
Right.
he went to the
But
funeral.
anyway, so I was mentioning DeSantis and why I'm concerned about him. So I'd like to talk just a little bit about that. Okay, so almost every day, if you study what DeSantis is doing, and I'd recommend everybody does it, or if you have some time to do it, he is blazing crazy new ground, even for Republicans. Now, before, you could dismiss it and say that's just Donald Trump. And a lot of people said, well, when Trump's gone, it'll get better. Some people said, well, you got the Lincoln Project and Michael Steele, who was the chairperson of the Republican Party and left. But you're beginning to see Trump's gone, but you've still got so many, some of whom have been mentioned tonight, whether it's MTG or Lauren Boebert or Mo Brooks, it doesn't matter. Gosar, whoever, Madison Cawthorn. The idea is, but the focus is on DeSantis. Right now, he is running for president, no question. He is the front runner if Trump, for whatever reason, is unable to run. And there are, of course, many reasons why that's could be a possibility, from health on to criminal charges, etc. And let's just look at what he's done in Florida. He's got Don't Say Gay ruling. He's got the textbooks, which I'll talk about next week. There's nothing positive in my way of thinking of what America should do. But the Disney, like I said, that's a key thing. Now, if anybody knows better
Dave,
than
you have to
I
a little bit
do-
closer to the
Yeah,
mic.
if anybody knows better than I do, please, what should I say? Take up, let me know now. But as I understand it, basically this is it. All right. So DeSantis comes out with this ambiguous, but the opponents are right, basically says in schools you cannot mention, talk about, have books about any alternative lifestyles other than men and women. Evangelicals, go, 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 go. Spanish Catholics, go, 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 go. And those who believe that lesbians and gay men and trans and bisexuals and questioning, that they are human too and have rights. And then those people themselves look for somebody, a champion, if you will. And they thought, well, maybe Disney, right? And the powers that be that Disney remained silent at first. Then there was some upheavals in terms of Disney personnel, and one of the Disney family actually spoke, that we have to do this if Walt stands for anything, or if Disney, not Walt, it stands for those who are outsiders and, kind of thing. So they come out then and going to oppose it. DeSantis then fires back and says, okay, you do that. We're going to take away the special privileges that you have. And those special privileges were basically, Disney was almost a state into itself, or a county into itself, if you will. They were they had their own zoning. They contracted out for their own police. Now you say, well, what's big about zoning? They could do whatever they wanted, right? Without, and Anthony, I'm going to get to that in a moment, sure, about the problems with Disney. Once again, there's no what should we say, no champions or no white knights in this battle. So DeSantis has a Republican Senate and a Republican legislature, and they overwhelmingly approved that. He'll sign it. So Disney will lose this. Now, again, we don't know what will happen, but it appears that somebody's got to pick up those costs, and that'll be the state of Florida, right? So Orlando, where Disney's located, where the property values are already high, taxes are relatively high there. Florida very low, but so they'll pick this up. Now, the problem becomes, I can see some wisdom to what DeSantis is doing. So I always think you have to look at the enemy and see, okay, is there points? Now, Anthony, if you would be so kind to list some of your problems with Disney, I'm going to take it from a very simple. Have you ever, Brian, in your lifetime, seen Disney lower its prices? I have not.
I have not, no.
No. It is almost a middle-class family with 3 children is priced out of going to Disney. They still go because the kids need Disney, they say. And now they're building special privilege on special privilege. I think they now have 3 different versions of tickets, where you pay the super duper price and you get on and ride whenever you want. And then there's another price, you can do a little bit of that. And they did away with the time passes, which I thought was good. You could go and get one, and it kind of guaranteed you later in the day you would get on that ride. So they're not at the top of the charts of people going. I've heard, you hear a lot of, they're just priced themselves out. So DeSantis, I think, is aware of that. Secondly, Brian, those 74 million people who voted for Trump, how many of them do you think are pro-LGBTQ people? 7?
Well, they're closer to 0 than they are to 74 million. That's for goddamn sure.
Well, and no, they're closer to 7. I mean, that's absurd. And that's an issue that cuts across economics.
Dave, can you come just a couple?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I keep backing up on my bad. So you get this couple popular things here. You're taking on a big corporation. We all want to do that, right? You're taking on Disney. And here's what DeSantis is saying, and it's not so wacky. It's not like Disney's the only big company down there. You've got Universal, you've got SeaWorld. They don't get the exemptions that Disney does. His supporters have pointed out that Disneyland in California doesn't get that kind of...
Right, but this is, don't forget, Disney's, the operation there is so much larger than anybody's right there. They made California. That. Without Disney, nobody came down there.
I understand that. That's history. There's a lot of Marcia Taylor Greens out there say, you're asking me a history question. I don't have the history.
Well, let's just go with it. Look, I understand your point. I'm just saying we know why he's doing this. And this sets a precedent because he's going after corporations. If they don't go along with the Republican Party, they're going to come after the corporation now.
Exactly. Now, If he wins that, who do you fight for? The big corporation of Disney or against him? And the two issues that Disney has on its side, do they outweigh the fact that they're, a monolithic giant, sort of like not as bad as Amazon and Facebook and these places, but they're pretty big. What, 435,000 workers, I think, at Disney. What are their two issues? They're speaking up for the LGBTQ community, and the other issue that they have is, no matter how the governor tries to hide it, he violated the right that a corporation has to speak and not be retaliated against by the government. So is it
by
the
the way, Dave,
higher
cut through.
ground?
I am gonna take a 2-minute break and go downstairs and maybe get some tea or something like that.
All
You
right,
can
do that.
take this for two.
I got it. I'll do the rest of the 7 months. Go ahead.
Hold on, let me get a scene with just
And
you here.
I'll give the people some background.
Okay. Should I turn on some accordion music?
No, we're fine. Go ahead.
All right, be back. You'll do well. Tell some jokes.
I'm fine. Go ahead. So it may seem to you out there, Dave's just rambling again when he's saying no. I think this is an American moment when a Republican presidential candidate is putting down a group of people, attacking a major corporation, and it will be a defining moment for this new Republican Party, the outcome of this. Now, I don't think, and again, I don't know, you've seen them even on Divided We Stand. Disney should pick up and go home. They're not going to do that. Okay. Orange County, where they're located, gives special benefits to SeaWorld, and they give special benefits to Universal. So, Disney's still got a good thing going there, but they won't have the great thing that they had. So do they then, to attack, say, well, we've got to lay off people, or very easily, they're going to raise the costs of going to Disney? And Anthony, you said earlier, you have reservations about Disney. I think any right-thinking person does, but they're often undone by a granddaughter or grandson or a child tugging on you and saying, oh, I want to go to Disney. I want to go to Disney. I know friends of mine who have gone every year. I wouldn't. So, an interesting battle. Any of you listening, if you could throw up a couple comments, because I think the other fascinating thing this week was the performance of Marjorie Taylor Greene. Do you think, and I don't, that she lost any support this week, even though she should? I don't remember playback what she said. I don't recall playback what she said. All of a sudden, she doesn't recall doing this stuff. Personally, I do not think she is fit to be in Congress. I think she's a disgrace to the state of Georgia. I think she's a disgrace to the Republican Party. I think she's a disgrace to every good congressperson who's ever walked through the Capitol. I think she's a disgrace to women. I think she's a disgrace to the organizations she claims to believe in, Christians, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But her district voted her in. And that is tough. Do you take her away her right for an insurrection, which so far hasn't been labeled by the government officially as an insurrection. And that brings us to one of my favorite whipping boys, an organization's Department of Justice. We need a couple of charges, a couple of indictments. Number of candidates. Is Mr. Gates a pedophile or not? May not matter in his district, but it matters in the court of right and wrong. Did Marjorie Taylor Greene, Gates again, some others, did they play an active role in what any normal person has to say was a terrorist attack, an insurrection, a direct attempt to overthrow the will of the people? Well, until you get that ruling, if I were you, as much as I enjoy having you on this show, I don't know if the rally's probably done. Donald Trump tonight, was my understanding, he was speaking in Ohio in support of Mr. Vance, who as recently as 3 years ago, was a never Trumper, wrote Hillbilly Elegy, became a fairly acclaimed author, and now decides he wants to run, and now is a Trump sycophant. And Ohio, key Republican state, and there's apparently some mutterings, Mr. Trump should stay out of this. Now, people think, well, the Republican Party will self-destruct. I wish that were true. I'm wearing my Alabama hat because, for those of you who don't know, I was down there, 4 or 5 days. It's where our son is. He's a professor at the University of Alabama and the University of Chicago and the University of Australia, and splits his time between the three. And Mo Brooks, who is a congressman who was integral in the January 6th incident, no question about that. He's running to replace the outgoing senator against 2 other candidates. Mr. Trump endorsed Mr. Brooks. Mr. Brooks said something mildly against Trump. Trump pulled his endorsement, which means a lot in Alabama. And now you've got 2 people to the right of Mo Brooks, which, wow. I mean, that's so far right, I didn't even think people could get there. There's also a gubernatorial race down there. They have a female governor, Governor Ivey, who is way out there in conservative land. And she's being opposed by 2 candidates, more, but 2 viable, that are to the right of her. So while Brian's down there doing whatever he does, we sit back, we look at America, and what the hell is going on? Tomorrow's Sunday, in France, one of the more, I'll use the word interesting, elections. You have one of the leading liberals, I guess Macron would be, in the world stage today, against a female candidate whose father was about as big a Nazi and Nazi supporter as you could be and not have a first name Adolf and be a German. She has spoken fondly of Vladimir Putin. She has said that she would pull France out of NATO, among other things. Now, of course, it's pointed out that Vladimir Putin and Russian banks, which are somewhat synonymous, are the biggest supporters financially to her and her organizations. So my question is to anyone who's out there international is, I think Americans, including myself, sometimes our looks are too internal. It's about us and, this and what's happening here. But this seems to be a kind of almost a worldwide push against liberalism, democratic government. Is that true? Well, we'll have a little bit better idea, I think, with the French election tomorrow. My gut feeling is the current president will be reelected, but there's no guarantee for that. And then it brings us back here. So I am going to ask you to do something. What I would like you to do is, because Brian's down there now, obviously doing whatever he needs to do medically. But if you have any questions, not so much for me to answer, but to spark some kind of discussion, because I think part of this is not just words, it's your show too, but there's so much to worry about or be concerned about. It's nice to know, and not just Brian and I talking on this, but others, what's got you bothered tonight? What's at the top of your agenda? I'm not going to talk about it tonight. I'm putting some things together, but as a former teacher, way up on my agenda is the absolute absurdity of banning books and the books that are being banned, the absolute insanity of worrying about critical race theory, which does not exist in any elementary, middle, or high school in America, which carried to its extreme is not good. I'm not worried about Tucker Carlson and the people who want the red light on their balls. I think that's a great thing.
I see you haven't missed much.
Tan your testes. Listen, I wasn't going to say anything, but Brian came out with a smart remark. All I know, ladies and gentlemen, is this. I'm going to ask Brian. He's a fairly honest man. Did you not, a few years ago, have blue lights on the area of your outside yard? Yes or no?
I cannot tell a lie. That is an absolute fact. That is true.
Okay, so Brian, we've already established that Brian is not averse to color lights. Now, Brian, if I were to suggest that you did this Werther's as kind of a gimmick, because I learned today,
no gimmick. Werther's it's like a very warm, buttery feel, and it got, as you notice, the
why
throat
did you suck?
Listen, the throat is not, through evolution, is one of the poorly made things in the human body, and it goes to the esophagus and the windpipe, and there's only like a millimeter in between, and one wrong step and you're done.
That's not answering my question.
All right.
Why did you choose, when you were getting ready for this show, to put Werther's in your mouth?
Truthfully, on the last
truthfully.
two shows, I've had
truth.
orange juice and Beauchamp, it's like a liqueur mixed together. It was really, really nice. And today, I forget what I had. I guess I had like a chicken cheese steak or something like that. Anyway, bottom line is I didn't want to have the liqueur tonight. So I thought, well, what am I going to do to, compensate for nothing going through my throat? So I said, I'll have a Werther's. Maybe that'll do it. So I grabbed about 7 Werther's. And
how many are
after
left?
the second one, something went down into the windpipe. So, not good.
Ladies and gentlemen, you did not think this show would take this medical turn, but it has. But I'm afraid, Brian, I don't think you're telling the people the truth. It looks like behind you is some blue lighting on one side
Blue
and red
and
on
red.
the other.
Yes.
Pardon me?
That's exactly
Is
what
that
I
true?
set up on my Hue. I don't know if you can see.
But would you agree that there's blue and red behind you right now?
Absolutely.
And would you agree, what you already done, that you had
Are
blue
you an
lights?
attorney tonight or something? Are you Perry Mason? Should I get the Perry Mason?
I did.
yet?
I did train for 2 days before they fired me to be an attorney. Now, here's the thing. So you're going to tell me, if I tell the people Werther's was just a gimmick because you had red lights delivered yesterday and ran
lights?
down
What were red lights?
to
Whoa,
tan
whoa,
your
whoa.
scrotum, that would be a falsehood?
Now you just jumped off the precipice there. You
No,
went
I
from-
didn't. I'm asking you.
You asked me if I at one time had blue lights.
And you said yes.
That's it. That's the only yes I can give you.
Well, so
And now
would
I
you
have
care to
one back here.
respond? Okay,
No.
let me ask you a direct question,
Test.
like I would ask a Republican. Did you, sir, go downstairs and utilize any form of red light and put it near anywhere described medically, anything from your scrotum to D's nuts? Did you do any of that?
I went to get some tea. The only red light that was emanating from my travels was the burner on the stove.
Did you, sir, then take said scrotum and put it near the red burner so that you would get more testosterone?
No, you're going too far.
Why am I going too far? How do we know what you did? You weren't on camera. What are you doing now?
I'm trying to get some hot water down my throat to calm whatever.
Now, let me ask you something. Is that hot water or is that tea?
Tea. Hot tea.
Now, let me point out to you. Let's look at Kim's comment. Kim is a marvelously intelligent woman. Tan your testes. What letter does tan begin with, Brian?
Tea.
What letter does testes begin with?
Tea.
What are you drinking right now?
Green tea.
I didn't ask for an adjective. So there is a correlation.
I'll tell you, liquid.
No, that's not specific. You had already admitted that you were drinking first hot water, and when I questioned you, you said it was tea. So how do we know, Mr. Weinstein, that while you're claimed to be a liberal, how do we know that you aren't trying to boost your testosterone downstairs with either the red lights which you purchased or the red light that you said was part of the fire that was doing your tea? Do you care to comment?
I don't have to mess with my testosterone. It works. It works.
Now,
But I don't want to get into that because that's not
now
that's a different
now we're
lane
done with
here,
the question.
okay?
I'm sorry,
We're not
what?
talking that kind of stuff tonight. At least
Well-
I didn't think we were.
Well, it's a national. Don't you think that Mr. Carlson has raised that as a national issue?
I think it's such an absurd thing for someone like Tucker Carlson to bring up. But you know what? That's probably the extent of their creativity, is to just say something
Well,
absurd.
My friend, Mr. Peacock, if I read his remarks earlier, it was mentioned, and he said that's their thing, and testosterone. And do you see, seriously, Brian, now there's always a method to what I do.
Yes.
Do you see a connection between a dismissal of gays and a need for testosterone?
A dismissal of gays and a need for testosterone. I don't even know where that to begin with that kind of thing, but it kind of relates to what I was talking about with like the nuclear weapons and why did Putin even have to make the threat? You know, he tried to come off as some hard ass, but you don't threaten to do it, you just do it. That's
And I would say that you don't need to tan.
so why they had to bring up testosterone. They keep saying, "What's happened to the male? We need to," as if they're the ones with testosterone. It's like the guy who has to, hang those rubber testes on the back of their truck. Like, why do you have to boast about something? And it's
Why do you have to carry? Why do you have to carry one of the most phallic symbols ever, a gun, around with you to the 7-Eleven? Right?
Yeah,
it's all there. Right? It's all there.
It's
And
obnoxious what they're doing, and
it's one of a package. And once again, you see one of the primary motivators of the new Republican Party, which is pick your poison: fear, anger, hatred, mistrust, a willingness to dismiss facts. And my number tonight is 74 million people. Now, Joe Biden won with 80, right? That was one victory. I don't mean to pick on our vice president, but I want to ask you a serious question, because I think this is something we all have to look at. Would you agree that in normal times, well, let's do it this way. The vice president is literally, a heartbeat away from being president. Okay? There you are. So in the event that something were to happen to Mr. Biden, Ms. Harris would become the president of the United States. If for any reason Joe Biden decides not to run or is physically incapable of running, she goes in as the presumed front runner, just like right now. DeSantis is he's presumed. He's been anointed by Fox, which is the same thing, I guess, in the Republican side. If it were between Ron DeSantis and Vice President, who do you think would win that race today?
If the race were between Ron DeSantis and
our current Vice President,
in a fair race, Biden would win.
Who?
Biden.
Biden's out of it. Our Vice President.
Vice President. Oh, okay. I keep thinking Biden's Vice President. That's terrible.
Well, he was for 8 years.
I know. I just that's the
and a
first
very
thing
good one.
I would say that it would bring out the black vote for Harris, but I think she would lose.
And I don't want to wish that,
because there are people who are, they're just misogynistic and
racist. And
That's
I don't want to attack. I don't want to attack the nice little soccer moms driving their Subarus and Suburbans, taking their kids to soccer practice.
Dave, are you getting therapy? Somebody said.
Am I getting therapy? Actually, the last 2 times they've sent me to a therapist, the therapist threw me out, said that I was crazy. No, I'm not. Although there are many people who, as seeing the whole thing here play through, who think I should get therapy. I probably should, from working with Brian, but the idea of it is, like I said, my concern is the next president of the United States. Now, I'm not overlooking the midterms, and I'm not going to make any projections or predictions, because I was wrong so much in the Trump race. But I think we all need to be concerned and looking at all the possibilities, and what do we do in the event of a candidate that we feel we might not be our candidate versus a Republican. And Mr. Sanders, who I don't think would actually run again, but if you notice,
I'm going to interrupt. Kim,
yes.
I am very definitely not into body shaming with anybody. I don't do that. But I'm going to agree with you. I find it, yes, they are very, and I mean that truly. I can't even look. It's just disgusting. I
Brian,
find them. They
Brian.
don't look normal. But Dave,
Brian.
that was just a quick comment. I'm sorry for interrupting.
I'm worried now. I think you might need therapy. Brian, what I would suggest right now is to stand
Somebody
up.
said, "Are you getting testy there?"
Yeah, that's Gary. Good one, Gary. Now, Brian, you shouldn't be ashamed of your body. So what I want you to do is stand up now. Take your pants down. Let us judge for ourselves.
You know what they're called in Russian?
No,
Eggs.
what?
Eggs.
Well, it makes sense, right?
Yaitza.
So let's see your eggs. We will be the judge of whether you should, or we should, or the Divided We Stand family should send you for red light ball therapy or not. What do you say? Why? Tucker. What letter does Tucker begin with? I think we're seeing a pattern tonight. T is for Texas. T is for Tucker. T is for
No,
testes.
Anthony's getting into it.
Who? Yeah. This is we're not even X-rated yet. I mean, come on. This is still PG. Maybe we could do that, right? Let's ask Tucker to come on the show and show his testes. But now let's get serious for a moment. Right. And still on that same subject. Tucker's very concerned, I guess, about males and testosterone and being that. But he doesn't feel a woman has the right to control her own body.
Right.
What's up with that? What's up with DeSantis deciding what goes into a textbook and not really asking the students, the teachers, or the parents? Maybe. Shit. Let me think about this. I'm not trying to couch my words. The difference, a difference, I should say, the difference is, as we see, the Republicans will back any candidate.
See you, T-Bone.
Bernie.
Good luck.
Bernie and.
Good to see you.
Yes, T-Bone, thanks for coming. And mothers are always more important than this show.
By the way, HLS, thank you for subscribing to our channel. I appreciate that. We're up to 117, Dave. Can you believe that?
Very good. Very good. Even despite your inability to
Well, we might lose of you after your ball talk.
No, okay. My thing is what now, after Trump, is really off limits to talk about? A man who said, I grabbed them by the pussy. Now that is wrong on a lot of levels.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Becomes president. The number one watched show in news, Tucker Carlson, talks about red lighting your balls. That same week, the Rudy Giuliani fiasco on, what's the show, The Masked Singer or whatever that's called. I never watched it. So we allow him to rehabilitate himself after he attempted definitely to orchestrate an overthrow of the American government.
Yes, I got your picture. I'm going to show that to this just real quick. I did say this, Dave. This is something that Sandy sent me.
Okay, put that up. Anytime anybody sends
I just because it was Trump's golf course, but it was just horrific. I mean, it looks like shit.
Okay. In May, 3 weeks, I'll be broadcasting from scenic Las Vegas, where I'm going to do an interview for a couple interviews for a story I'm working on. And that made me think. Judy and I like to walk a lot in any city, and we're walking down the strip. And, you know, Trump has a casino there, but it's not on the strip, right?
Mhm.
And I'm bad with like distances, but I would say at least a quarter mile. It was off the strip by at least a quarter mile, and literally just like you saw that shitty ass.
I mean, it's a
Golf
really horrible golf course. That's
Well, that was it. Was really
It's just-
literally a trash dump,
it looks like it really does look like a dump.
and yet show that to 74 million people, 74 million Americans. Does it change their mind? No. And that's what we
Because they
have
hate
to worry
us.
about. That's
And
what we have-
why do they hate us so much? I mean, just think about it. There's got to be a reason. Is it about Obama? I mean, we could go in all night about this, but is it
Well, I
mainly
think it's-
Obama?
No.
Or it's just everything. They see the world changing in front of them.
Okay. Let's start at the top of the list. Is one difference between a conservative and liberal is a liberal is more open to change. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Well, that prepares you better for the world.
The liberal is usually willing to listen to facts. If somebody all of a sudden gave me the facts and it showed that Trump was right, then I'd have to agree. Oh, well,
I
he
would
was
agree.
right about climate change. You know, it didn't.
That's
occur.
something else I just want to touch upon tonight. So, because it does involve this question of why they hate. All right. So, we go to Alabama on
Banjo with
Friday
me.
before Easter. So that was last Friday, right? Right.
Mhm.
And everybody's masked in National Airport. Everybody's masked on the plane. Didn't fly that much during the pandemic, maybe 3, possibly 4 times. Never saw any incidents, but of course they were happening all over the place. Go down, and coming back, you don't have to wear a mask. Now, why is that? A federal judge ruled that the CDC and the federal government overstepped their bounds by forcing masks on people. Now, I'm only able to comment on what I've read about the judge, but I do know 2 facts. One is she was nominated and approved by Trump. Now, I mean, somebody gave him her name. And secondly, that the Bar Association in the state where she resides and practices law said she was totally unfit to be a judge. Anthony, if you didn't like that, there's something wrong with you. That's the theme from The Sopranos, yeah. Woke up this morning by the Alabama 3. So, Brian, what's going to happen? I'm going to break my rule right here.
Okay. Come a little bit closer to the mic, Dave. We got to keep
I will.
it in mind.
I'm right on top of it, Brian. That's you messing with it. I'm right on top of it.
I can't get you much louder.
The idea, here's what's going to happen. If you're going to force a prediction, I'm going to break my own rule and predict something. I'm going to say tonight, with all the uncertainty of the certainty I can muster,
Uh-oh.
that the next ruling will restore masks.
When is? Oh, say that one more time. There,
I'm going to say that the next ruling, because now the Department of Justice, under the direction of the White House, is going to appeal the removal of mask order. And I will say at the next level, the judge panel, because it won't be one judge, it'll be a 3-judge panel, will restore the masks. Now, for this reason, if what I have read is true, the judge who ruled, There's two parts of a ruling, right? There's the ruling, and then the reason why the judge or the judge panel or the Supreme Court ruled.
Thank you,
right?
Nina.
And so what happens is this. It's usually not the ruling, because that can be debated whether masks should or shouldn't, or where are we, or what are we going to do. But apparently her reasoning was completely faulty and based on a misunderstanding of the law that would allow that to be done. So my question is, that's not going to help people who are saying, what the hell? We wear a mask, we don't wear. To me, it's real simple. You wear a mask because one of two things or both. It gives you protection from getting a disease that was killing people and still has the ability to do so. And it protects you from giving that disease to anyone, right?
Right.
Now, 3 members of my immediate family of Alabama have had COVID. That would be my daughter-in-law, Shannon, and my granddaughter, Audrey, and my grandson, Owen. And we were talking about, I was talking with Owen, and he said, Grandpa, you know, if I didn't know Mom had it, and I didn't know my sister had it, I said, I would have never known I had it. You gave more indication tonight, not that you have COVID, but he said, I coughed 3 times. Now, he was positive, false positive. So my point is, how do you know you don't have it if you're like that? So I don't have any problem wearing a mask. Do you have any problem wearing a mask?
I love
Have you
wearing
ever?
the mask, and I told my doctor 2 days ago, I said, I'm not going to take that thing off. I'm going to use it. I haven't had, my allergies haven't been as bad. I have been tested around 6 times for COVID, every time negative, knock wood. So I just find it an advantage for me, and I know that most people aren't going to wear it across the country. But in fact, I'm sure some will give me nasty looks for wearing it because it's a political thing. But I don't care, because
It's
that
interesting.
N95, you know, they could get polio for all I care.
Right. Again, you know, these national, international issues really come down to how they affect us and how we look at them. So I say, go to Alabama, no masks, come back on the plane in the airport. I'm sorry, masks. No masks to come back. So I was looking at the number roughly in the airport. Now remember, this is Alabama, where mask wearing is, it's not one of the states where it's done a whole lot. But there was still probably about, I don't know, 15 or 20% of the people, even though you didn't have to wear a mask, wearing them. But I got back to DC, well, the National Airport, headed toward DC. And I said, it'll be interesting on the metro. You know, had they waived it, and they did it the next day. So today was the first day I was on the metro since the masks were not there. And it was, if it was 10% wearing a mask, that was a lot, right? Now, the second thing that was interesting was coming back from the ball game. It was the most packed I've seen a metro car since 2019. So it wasn't like I'm not wearing a mask, you know, because, and you've seen pictures and others. I mean, I've been on the metro when Judy and I, or I'm the only person on cars. Those days are gone, which is good for the economy and good for us getting us back and all that. But my concern is,
Nina.
I wish we could, well, it's, you know, what is it? Everybody, you know who has actually taking next week off. Not that everybody gets it. Stephen Colbert tested positive.
Really?
I mean, yeah, and you know they had the super spreader here in DC about a week ago. 62 people who were at that soiree, including Nancy Pelosi, and list goes on, went in not being COVID positive and came out. So that's kind of a perfect definition of a super spreader.
But it's this is I don't want to get into this conversation again and make it sound silly, but it kind of has parallels with with age and with sex and all that kind of stuff. AIDS, I should have said, or any sexually transmitted disease in general. People usually take those kind of things seriously, and why they would take it seriously for that and not the other, it shows it's a political problem. So if there had been an issue
that's
where
exactly,
they became
you're exactly
sterile,
right.
and I think it's because it's a guy thing, you can bet they'd put the fez on, so to speak. So
no, of course. Now, we weren't alive during the last pandemic, right?
Mhm.
But what little bit I've read about it, there was a lot of resistance to wearing masks, but it wasn't political, right? I mean, and now everything. And Michael was leaving, our son was leaving after we flew back. He had a lecture he had to deliver in Atlanta, and he taught at Georgia State, so he had friends there, and a group of them got together, and they were from all over the country and that kind of thing. And they all kind of looked at each other and said, Michael, you've been away for 2 years. What your take on this? And there were a couple foreign professors who had been back, and he said, and he keeps saying something changed, and it has, Brian. Whether it's that much different than it was in times that you and I and most of the people didn't exist.
Well, listen, if people took that attitude with things like sex, I think that both you and I would have had a different risk. I mean, you wouldn't deal with those kind of people.
Well, I'm thinking when you brought up HIV, I don't know if you were there. We had a emergency meeting in school when that was breaking out, and the nurse said, you should not touch debts that students have touched because it could be spread that way. Now, I dismissed that, and she was proven wrong. But today, if you were to say that half, a third, 40%, X number would have said, oh, okay.
Well, remember Irvin Johnson? I mean, Charles Barkley and a host of other players didn't want to go near him because of his sweat.
Well, and that was in.
I'm not saying go overboard. I'm just saying this reaction toward the masks and the disease is such a political.
You're right.
Response rather than.
Now let me ask you, the big question, because you're absolutely 100% right, is in the next whatever it is, do we ever get back to things that shouldn't be political? Not being political.
Dave,
I don't see a way back.
The only way I look at it is that, this thing is here to save your life. And, when it came to sexual intercourse and things like that with diseases, people use contraception, not simply for, obviously, avoiding pregnancies, but, here's the most enjoyable thing in the world that you can have, but it can kill you or stigmatize you with the disease, so you protect yourself.
Let me ask you.
And you hope that the person you're with is completely honest about the situation.
Right.
So why not with the mask? Why can't people do it the same way? Because on Friday night when the Trumper goes to the bar, what is their, or maybe their attitude is like that, and they are contracting diseases, because they don't give a shit.
Would you believe this is a true statement? While people were worried about HIV and AIDS, it was more of a concern to gay men.
Yes,
than it was to
absolutely.
heterosexual, right? Right. Okay. What if I were to tell you that these Trumpers really believe that this was a Democratic Joe Biden, George Soros.
And
Hillary-
Soros keeps coming up everywhere from Russia to here. And I'm sick of people bringing Soros up like he controls the world. It's pathetic.
But Brian, listen. I agree with you, but these people don't agree with us. They believe that, Brian. They think we're crazy.
And that's why we're divided. We stand. And this is why I disagreed in the end with someone from Discord. It was wonderful, wonderful video. But he's saying, no, we're going to have dialogue. Well, we do have a dialogue to a certain sense, or to a certain limit. But at this point, we just got to hold on to our own here. And you've got to fight back because they play dirty.
The only thing that, that I do worry about is that I do have limits to what I would do, right? Because I know and they vary. Okay. I would not kill a person over a political disagreement.
Okay, but I'm gonna do a thought experiment with you. Hold on, because I don't think.
Let me finish, and then you may. I would take anybody's life who tried tonight to take the life of my wife or myself without a moment's hesitation and worry about the effects later. So I'm not saying I'm a peacenik, but I'm saying that.
I understand that.
Okay, so go with your thought
experiment. But this is a question that I could easily ask myself.
I know.
And I think I've asked this before. Now, nobody expects you to take up a weapon and go to the Capitol with a World War I machine gun and kill all the Republicans. You're not going to do that.
Correct.
But since this is a thought experiment,
go ahead.
I'm going to ask you to answer this honestly.
I will.
You get to play God, sort of, a semi-God, God, and you can hit a red button and they just disappear.
I hit the red button.
Because there's nothing to stop you. There's no court case that you have to deal with. It just simply takes them, just like on Star Trek. Well, they're reduced to dust, and it happens immediately. Painless. They're done.
Up an interesting
and here
point.
you say yes. Now that's kind of like bombing from 60,000 feet because you don't see them.
That's part of it.
So the only reason you're deciding, you're like the assassin who misses, and he doesn't have to pay the full price that the assassin does that hits.
Ah, my friend. You gave me...
Because they're both the same. It's just one's lucky that they haven't hit.
No, they're not. If I take a gun and go to the Capitol, there's a good chance that I'm not coming back alive.
Right. And I know that. Absolutely.
Now, if I push the button, you didn't say anything's going to happen to me.
No, nothing's going to. That's what I'm saying. It's the psychology of it. You would be willing to do it if it were not for the results that would happen to you. It's not the fact that you don't want to do it, though. That's my whole point.
No, I don't want to do it because of the impact on me.
Right. But I'm saying, my whole point is the reason you don't do it is because of the impact, not because you feel some ethical, wall in front of you. You really would want to do it.
But also, Brian, I think
it's like when somebody cuts you off, on the highway, you say, I wish that guy would fucking die.
I know.
But you don't have the machine guns in front of your car.
But you know what? Here's another part of that experiment that might make a difference. It's sort of like the famous one, would you go to the track and kill one person versus three, and what if this? Right. It goes on all night. You didn't put any conditions on what happens to those people when they die, right? I mean, I guess if I push the button, they're going to die, right?
They're not going to exist, right? But they're not. Right. It's not going to be painful. It's just going to. They're going to be reduced to dust.
But I know. Okay, let me do this. I do not believe in the concept of heaven and hell. I do not.
We know. Okay. We know that.
I believe that as far as our physical bodies, we are not here, we are here, and then we're not here again.
Right.
I believe as far as our mind, we are not here, we're here and then we're not here.
It's like the memory's erased from the disc.
Correct. But the energy factor may be used to replenish others.
Well,
but we don't
listen,
recognize it.
But hold on.
Go ahead.
And there's a problem with that because just remember, yes, your energy flows into something else, but one could say that you're the energy from something else before you.
I am.
Okay? Which
That's
you
all.
are. We're all stardust.
I'm
in
not
this
saying there's
sense.
any consciousness. So if what I believe is, well, let me start with this way. What I believe is what I believe. And if I believed in a hell, would I be more hesitant to push that red button? I might, right? Because I don't believe I'm condemning anybody to hell.
Mhm.
I'm just hastening up what's going to happen to all of us eventually. Now, if you said push the button and they're going to have
Well, again, my
lingering
only
cancer
point with this thought
for
experiment,
20
Dave,
years, though. But see, we all do this all the time, you and I. You want a pristine, pure thought experiment, and there is no such thing.
well, I'm just trying to get to your state of mind, and what
Told
I'm
you.
saying is we're kind of the same thing. We do wish death. We just don't want to pay the penalty for it, and we want to make sure that
No
it's,
argument. I don't
know,
have any problem with that. Admitting
these
that.
people. My problem is the Kyle Rittenhouses because they're the ones who do it knowing that they're probably going to get away with it or too stupid to take the chance. But they got away with it because of some asshole judge. Which he
Brian,
was.
my friend, right now we have a president of the United States guilty on so many charges, from the kids he picked on in his preteen years till today. And he gets away, justice, fairness, the law, they're all different things, right? And that's why when I hear that, now be interesting. We're talking earlier. Now we'll tie this in. Remember when I think it was Anthony put up there, he liked the Alabama 3 song, woke up this morning, and I mentioned it was a theme song from The Sopranos.
Right.
Here's something to think about, and I've been thinking about it a lot recently. I'm watching a show that started in, I think, 1998, and it really is a precursor in TV to something. It's called The Shield. Are you aware of that show at all, Brian?
No.
Okay, basically, it actually involved a lot of people who went on to Breaking Bad and Sons of Anarchy. Not so much for The Sopranos, but what do those shows share in common? They show flawed heroes or just bad dudes who we somehow end up admiring, right? Whereas we grew up, I'm not saying we can go back to that, but we grew up, nobody had a gray hat, right?
Mhm.
Bad guys had the black hat, good guys had the white hat. We know that that's false, but what we grew up with, and now everything is more complex, about that. So the point that I'm talking about is it harder today to judge what is truly good and what is truly bad? And is that such a bad thing?
It's difficult to judge between. I have no problem in the difference between truth and lie, but this has been so blurred.
Well, that's my point. And I think a lot of that, it's blurred in fiction, it's blurred in television, it's blurred. I watch my grandson play some pretty violent games, right? It's what the kids do. We played some pretty violent games too. I don't remember anybody wanting to be the Indians, right? You wanted to be the cowboy. We know now that it wasn't as clear cut. So my point is, life is complex, but then somebody comes along like Donald Trump, I defy any person, and I'll be the first one to agree if I'm wrong, that points out one admirable human trait that he has ever demonstrated at any time. And my question becomes, if I'm so convinced that's true, and I am, my number for tonight, how does 74 million Americans not see it? And then we're back to your points. Do they hate us so much? Do they hate those that Trump hates? And you know what? We don't know who Trump hates.
Well, let's
You know what we know?
go back, Dave.
We know. Let me finish this one thought, Brian. We know the only thing we know is what Trump loves, and that's himself. We don't know what he hates. Go ahead.
Right. Again, we do know that for whatever reason, these 74 million people believe what they believe.
Correct.
And it's my suggestion, it goes back to my conversation today with my friend who lives in California. He's Polish. It's the propaganda. We were talking about Goebbels in, I guess, 39 was, I guess, when Germany invaded. Goebbels put out all this propaganda about, Poles raping German men and German women, and it was just movies. It was ridiculous propaganda that would, get the German populace so worked up. The Poles did nothing wrong in 39. They tried to defend themselves. It was cruel, and they had an army of 2 million soldiers that came across the border. So the Poles fought valiantly, but couldn't hold on. But again, it goes back to this Goebbels-like propaganda, and that was done with radio and with film. This is done every night. It's like an injection on Fox. You start off the show
Brian.
talking about OAN, Newsmax, and Fox.
Well,
and this is the problem, So now here, instead of talking about, strategic this and logistics that, no, they're talking about ball tanning, and that's more important.
Or the Masked Singer, or the Kardashians, or.
Right, because you have Ukraine going on, you have so many issues,
Right.
and they're talking about Mickey Mouse.
Right. So,
And it's sticking to the wall.
well, some critics, Marshall McLuhan being one, Neil Postman being the other, read a really good, I guess, reposition piece on amusing ourselves to death. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all as a journalist. That was kind of one of the things we read. And basically, condensed down, his thing was, which is the age-old argument, will we be 1984 or will we be Brave New World? Actually, we're having both, and we throw in A Handmaid's Tale and Fahrenheit 451. But the basic idea was totalitarianism versus Soma and the things that were in Brave New World. And I do think we're having both of it right now. There are people, Brian, who don't understand that reality TV is scripted. They hear the world react. Well, they couldn't script that. Of course they could. They do. The news interviews that we see, we're going to see what your favorite president of all time, Donald Trump, goes before, I can't even think of the guy's name. A disgraced journalist. Have you seen that promo? The promo is nothing like the interview will be, trust me. Because he's a liar journalist with a liar president. We're going to find the truth in that.
Right, and I think that's Ronnie was when we were taking a walk today. She told me how, everything has made her sickened because of the fact that she has built her life upon telling the truth. How important that is to her, and how important that is to Ronnie.
I know, I've known her for a long time.
But seeing the world around her, where it's just lies upon lies upon lies,
And see, I would
and
say,
it's acceptable.
I would say to Ronnie that while we are collective, no man or woman is an island. There are points when all that really matters is that you know the right thing to do and you do it. And I think this is one of those times.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a calling. You're right, Dave. We
I
have
mean-
to. Even what we're doing tonight is, in no small way, important because you
Well-
have to coalesce forces of good to fight evil. There is.
And unfortunately, and I'm sure this can't be original with me, but I said we're talking about this with a group of friends here, and I said, really, what it comes down to in life, you really have politically, you have one vote, right, and one voice, and not everybody is in a position or willing to use that voice, myself included. If I were still teaching, well, you can't say, but if I wanted to continue to teaching, I couldn't be talking like I am now. I mean, in school, right?
Right. Nor would some kids understand or want to understand.
Well, that wouldn't bother, it's just the fact of, I don't know that you could do it. I don't know if you should do it. It's funny, your favorite Florida governor there, DeSantis, and Marsha Taylor Greene, they throw around indoctrination. And again, I'm not a huge fan of memes, but sometimes there's one that's really funny. He said, a teacher, and it was probably not a real teacher, but he said, listen, you could talk about indoctrination all day, but if I could really indoctrinate my middle school kids that I teach, they would wear or use deodorant and do their homework. You're not going to indoctrinate that, but that's back to the fear. I've never understood, Brian, and maybe somebody out there can help me. They suggested therapy, and maybe I do need therapy. I seriously have never understood, since I've been maybe 12, 13, what there is to be afraid of. I'll go with the simplistic terms in those times, and then anybody use any terms they want today, of homosexual men and lesbians. Why are we afraid of them? Why should we be afraid of them?
And I mean, comedians have made jokes about this, but even from when you're a young adult and you hear about homosexuality, you see it as you almost kind of wish that there were more homosexuals, because when you're young, it gives you
Well, I mean, honestly, I've raised that point. I mean,
what is the problem?
Anyone. But what I mean for putting that down, but I mean, I don't understand it. Religion, that's not an issue to me. Show me where Jesus spoke against homosexuals if you want to do that. What do you got? You got the Sodom and Gomorrah experience, supposedly. And I think there's two places in the Bible. Well, if you're going to talk about Christianity, in my way of thinking, I mean, I'm not a Christian, but you throw away kind of the Old Testament, right? And go with what Christ said. So he didn't speak against, if anything, his actions, his words were said, let's help the lepers. Let's help the prostitutes. Let's throw the money changers out of the temple. Catch him up. Big topic tonight. If we were writing this tomorrow, I'd say, does Brian Weinstein take breaks from Divided We Stand to tan his testicles?
That reminds me, Dave.
Of a time you did tan?
No. This is people. I had mentioned a story that goes way back into high school. You remember when we were playing with your good friend, the poet R.G. Evans?
Yeah, I do remember that.
I had been telling him about a story about a substitute. This is no joke, folks. It's ironic that we're talking about this as a joke. But there was a substitute when I was in high school, and he had a weird name, and it sounded like Mr. Desert Balls, but it was like Desert Balls with his LZ at the end. It was like really weird, but like his name was like Desert Balls. And Robert G. Evans was a poet. He is a poet, and it just stunned him, that name. And he would always, like, every once in a while text me about Mr. Desert Balls, because there was a substitute. Like, I don't know how that works out, but there was a person like with a very similar name, Desert Balls. So everybody's checking.
Since this show should be entitled "We Have Balls, but They're Untanned," I don't know.
Or Desert Balls.
I was thinking, you think weird thoughts as you're preparing to speak. I don't want to put anything that could in any way hurt my balls near my balls, because I remember the first time I ever really knew what could happen with balls. I was 10 years old, trying out for Little League. We were on a rock hard dirt infield, and I got a shot that went through where my glove should have been, and that was a pain that I will remember for all my life. Now,
you don't forget that.
Other things, have happened in that area. Some of them very pleasurable, some of them, but that one stands out. So I'm just fascinated with not Tucker Carlson, because there's nothing that horrible to do, but I'm fascinated with people who would listen to him and think that tanning your balls, which is really what it is, putting the red light on there. It's maybe not tan, but would give you testosterone.
I don't get that part.
Because they want to be more manly,
But I'm saying, how does that have any
I don't know,
value?
Brian. That's what's inexplicable to me. To me, it makes more sense to say that red light might hurt.
Because you're heating
balls.
things up. It's killing your... Well, I don't want to get into it. It's too hot.
It's just absurd. But, Brian, what it says is...
Yeah, Joey, remember you got kicked by somebody? Remember that? You and Joey seem to have the same stories.
Well, that's why Joey and I get along so well.
Mm-hmm.
No, we just think, though, we devoted how much time tonight,
and it all came
talking
about when I left. You started
a legitimate political issue raised by the head fucker, Tucker Carlson from Fox News, in a world where we're also questioning on this show, how does wearing a mask become a political statement? And the size of Kim Kardashian's ass, and somebody put up the big trial.
Is that real, by the way, or is that inflated? Did she get that, purchase that, or did it happen naturally?
I have no idea. But what I do have an idea about is the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial down here. Brian, every morning, I haven't been down there, but I believe it's true. There are lines waiting to get a glimpse of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. The testimony is moving up on the charts. Why do
Joey.
we care?
We remember.
Why do we care really about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, other than the fact that they're famous? And I do admit that I'm not without some interest, because I want to know just what I want to know: what happened in that bed with Trump and those prostitutes in Russia. I want to know now, because it's been established in this trial that somebody shit in their bed.
Well, he shit the bed a lot. You know that.
Johnny claims that it was Amber. Amber claims that it was the dogs. Now, of course, I'm being facetious.
I thought you were talking about Trump.
No, well, I was the pee bed. But what I'm saying is, what does that say about us? You know, what does it say that, I don't know. I have no idea. What does it say about America that Joe Rogan makes $200 million for spewing his shit on Spotify? What does it say about America that Barack Obama and Michelle had a special deal with Spotify and they've pulled it out? I mean, two different messages there, right? Does it say that Barack and Michelle are better people than Joe Rogan? Yeah, I think so. But does it say that Michelle and Barack, it's pretty easy for them to do it because they can go to any other platform, right? So what it does say about America is the rich, the famous, the absurd, they get a platform, right? And unfortunately, Donald Trump has proved something to us, and this will be my last comment from tonight on this crazy ass show. In a strange, sickening, perverse sort of way, he proved an old adage that was never true and still not true, depending on how you look at it. But certainly, Donald Trump proved on one level that anybody can be president. There you are, Brian. Say goodnight to your balls. And would you pledge the people next week, since you said you didn't like...
Don't bring my balls into this, okay?
Why? Stand up. Let us judge for ourselves.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd ask you, if anybody's seen Brian's balls, would they write in on Divided We Stand page and either take the position that Brian's balls are fine or that Brian's balls are not fine? America wants to know.
Okay. Oh, Dave. I can always count on you to say something crazy. Like this.
No. You been all day fine. Anybody a doing it?
That is
Remember
me,
that?
yeah.
That was one.
That's the way
Dave used to leave. He used to leave messages to me, and that's what he would
They
do.
were fun. You know what? I said the last thing, but I can't. That's not as much fun anymore. Not because I've grown up. I'll never grow up. But the fact that there's so much shit that we can't ignore in the world today. I mean, it reduces my fun level, okay? I'm not a serious guy, and it's making me be serious.
Well,
Say la vie.
c'est la vie, such is life. Well, Dave, it's come to another end of Divided We Stand for this Saturday on the 28th. And we appreciate everybody for coming and dropping in. I guess we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish, and we did it all together, as you know we've been trying to do. So that's kind of important. But we do appreciate everybody coming by. Please, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and like and all that kind of jazz. That's all we ask for. We don't ask for any kind of money or anything like that.
And,
So
people, please be free if you think it would help to let the world know that a major part of the discussion was Brian Weinstein's balls. Maybe that'll help get a few more people in to watch.
Well,
You
we're gonna
can say that I suggested, not say it'll happen, that Brian may stand up, drop his drawers, and let us to inspect his balls next week. I don't know if that'll make people tune in, or maybe it'll make all of you not come back.
They made me
But
cough
we don't
again.
know. I think there are people out there that want to know about Brian's balls. That's just my thoughts.
We'll have an outro and say goodbye to Dave.
You got any balls?
Okay.
You got any balls? Oh my God.
When you hold me close to your body,
I see your balls.
something beyond the warmth of flesh,
Basically your balls.
moves into me.
Balls amaze me. I'm translating.
Sparking each cell. With the delight of contentment.
This show is being brought to you
When you
by our
make love to
sponsor,
me,
Dee's Nuts and Brian's Balls.
and your eyes suddenly open to meet my own,
Ladies, can you juggle two or
I feel
more
the connection
Brian's Balls?
as the warm lake in my belly.
Okay, Dave.
Spreading in ripples
Ben, what's that here to do with everything to do with
up
Brian's
into my
Balls?
chest.
Seems to be a running theme.
All right, folks. It's been a good night. Dave, they want you to bend over and cough.
Remember, ladies and gentlemen, what you do is save Brian's balls. Make sure that you do. Ladies and gentlemen, as you see Brian dance, imagine what his balls.
See you, folks.
Brian brush his balls. If he does brush